Welcome, travelers. I'm Lee Wanika of Tabletop Journeys, and this is On the Right Path. Hey, everyone. It's been a long road to get from there to here. It's been a long time, but my time is finally here. I'm not going to go on to the rest of that song. Just a little something I was thinking about. Part of that is a lot of Star Trek going on in the world, but most of that is I was thinking about all the interesting things that are happening with D&D lately. Obviously, we're weeks away from the debut of the 2024 rule set for the 5e iteration of Dungeons and Dragons. It's going to be huge. It's hard to escape the fact that D&D is the biggest game in the world or the most popular game in the world. So I wanted to talk about it a bit because there's been a lot of teeth gnashing and hand wringing and speculating and issues over elements of the game, and none more so than what is honestly and legitimately my absolute favorite archetype in the fantasy genre, the Ranger. With the Ranger, which has been so popular in different editions and so maligned in the most recent game, I think it's important to kind of talk about why that is. And there's a lot of differing opinions. So I have my own take on it, and that's what I'm going to share here. Feel free to agree or disagree in the comments down below. Let us know what you think. Am I off base? Am I right on target? Let me know. But honestly, I think it goes beyond the specific mechanics. I think it goes to the emotional connection that players have with the archetype. Many of us, when we think Rangers, we're thinking Aragon. We are thinking, that woodland expert that gets the party through the difficult times, shows them where to step so they can make it across the tundra, or shows them what plants can be eaten in the forest to survive, or mixes a poultice in the jungle to take care of a wound or relieve someone of their ailment. That's the fantasy that many of us have. By the way, Aragorn handles almost all of those things. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to bring out that fantasy in 5e. And the reason, in my opinion, is not exclusively the mechanics. I think the reason the mechanics let us down as players and GMs is because the mechanics are built one way or the other. In 2014, the Ranger fell short of the goal. Tasha's improved the character class, but still fell short of the goal. 2024 improves the character class in many ways, but still falls short of the goal. And many of us can have different opinions as to why. Some of that is what our specific fantasy of the Ranger is or may be. But largely, I think it's because the exploration pillar. Tabletop Journeys did a show probably a year, maybe 2 years ago about exploration. And after 2024, we're going to probably revisit the three pillars of the game again in the light of the new rules and talk about that. But honestly, it's the lack of support for the exploration pillar. The book says there's an exploration pillar, and technically there is because your characters explore. But there's very little narrative support for that in the core rules and in published adventures. Problem one. Problem 2, there's very little, at least in the 2014, mechanical support for characters in the exploration pillar. And problem 3, there's very little mechanical support for the exploration pillar, at least in the 2014 rules. And at the end of the day, that's why Rangers fell short. They couldn't handle the fantasy people had because there wasn't anything to do with them. Even if they had found the perfect mechanics to handle the exploration pillar, even if they found the perfect flavor for the Ranger and the perfect mechanical balance, the reality is they would be balanced for a pillar that really isn't there. And then you'd have all this goodness and nothing to do with it, missing the mark. When you try to overcorrect and provide other things, guess what? You now have a character that can do things and do them fairly well. But now you're not satisfying the fantasy of a character who is the expert at that pillar. You missed the mark. 2024, I think they're trying to, based on what I hear, obviously I won't know until we have it, split that difference and give us back some exploration things ish. But they realize there's not a good pillar there, so they give us all these other things, and I think it's going to fall short of either the fantasy or the exploration. Mechanically, emotionally, it's going to fall short somewhere in those three things because that exploration pillar is not really there. Well, that's it, folks. That's the video. That's why the Ranger's not good. I'm out. No, seriously, that's not good enough for me. I'm not happy to just sit here and report why something doesn't work. I want to talk about how to make it better. A little over a year ago, actually 2 years ago, we developed at Tabletop Journeys the Beast Mind subclass for the 2014 rule set to create a character that does some rangery things in a more rangery feel. But at the end of the day, it's better than what was, in my opinion, but it still can't do the things that aren't there because the pillar's not there. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. How do we improve the exploration pillar when the big rules aren't there for it? Well, the answer is GM's narrative and story construction. GMs can make an experience so much greater, even if there aren't specific mechanical rules on the page. And the way they do that is by constructing a story that leans into the tropes that people want. But you got to have some structure around it. So that's what I'm going to tell you about. I'm going to talk about how I found overland travel to be fun and engaging as a GM, as a player. But it's a lot of art and very little science. For me, it's important to do it in a way that includes some randomization, as one would find in the wild, but you have to give it that structure so that it has impact and value for the players at the table. I tend to treat overland travel as its own adventure module. Players have a goal at the start. They know where they are. They know where they're going. So in this adventure module, they're going to go from here to there. Will that be a 3-act structure? Will that be a 4-act structure? Heck, will I throw a denouement and a prelude so it's a 5-act structure? Who knows? I will vary that based on the needs, wants, desires of the table and the amount of session work that I want to prepare. But generally speaking, I try not to have overland travel be more than 2 3 to 4 hour sessions in a row. The first thing you got to do is you got to create something that emphasizes a part of the game for the players. Overland travel is the thing that you're showcasing, but you need to focus on an element of the player group. Is it their interpersonal relationships? How well have they bonded so far? How much they have splintered over the course of your campaign, how hurt they are, how resource deprived, how determined they are. These are the things you want to call out in your story. So some overland travels are about the players getting to know each other. And you set up story structures to do that and use the encounters in this travel to emphasize that. You just put it in the backdrop of the travel. Your box text is going to be a lot about the environment, what they see, what they hear. When you make roles, that ranger in your party, that person who's really handling that, you're going to describe to them the feel of things. Give them the mechanical benefits that are required by whatever role or feature they're using, but give them the feel of things, the feel of dread, the feel of happiness, that this is normal. Something is odd. Could there be something amiss? Is something that's happening during this overland travel a prelude or a clue to what's going on with the BBEG? Is something that's happening during this overland travel a showcase for how the BBEG's plans are impacting the world around the players? Or a showcase for how the actions and victories or losses of the players is impacting the world? When I plan these single sessions of overland travel, one or two sessions, depending on the amount of time I've got, that group meets for, I also allow for the fact that sometimes overland travel is a good way to create a break for the party. Sometimes players aren't available to play. You've got a 4-person or 5-person group and one person's not there. You don't want to do the next big thing without them. But at the same time, you don't want to lose one that precious game night one night a month. You know, there's a doom spiral, and that's very real for long-term campaigns. Missing a night, missing another night, missing a November game when you've got holidays in December, and rarely do groups get together in December. That's a death now. Now you're 2 months or 3 months between game sessions. People forget their characters, forget what they're doing, find other things to do. You don't want to do that. So you never want to miss that November game night. The key is overland travel. End a session largely concluded, ready to go to the next place. And sometimes the next session is you're there. Ta-da, you traveled, you're there. Maybe there's some roles to see if you depleted resources and things like that, but you're there. No big deal. Other times, you might need to delay being there by a session because someone's not present. Overland travel is a great way to do that. And while you're there, go back to those impacts and emphasis the things that you want to bring out, because you can use it to build the strength of the campaign and the connection of players to their characters and each other through this process. Often an overland journey will be there and back again. All due credit to Tolkien. In that case, I tend to show the details. We tend to do the adventure one way or the other, not both. The Hobbit is a perfect example of this. You got all the journey to Smaug, all of that, and very little of the journey back. That's actually good construction because you've seen the things, you've been the places, you've gone the way. To do the whole thing back, that's not as entertaining and can be sloggy in a tabletop game. Other times, after the big event, when you're there, you want to emphasize the travel back and showcase how strong the character is, or how good the character now is, or the knowledge that they've learned, or delay them. So now that they've gone there, now they need to get a couple more levels before they're back. So you need to emphasize the return. Nothing for nothing, I'm from Ithaca, New York. And with all props to Odysseus, a 20-year travel back, that was overland travel. at its extreme. That was basically a campaign of overland travel. I'm talking about sessions, but you can do a similar thing. Your group doesn't get home right away because something happens along the way. In any event, random encounter tables, rarely do I use them, at least at the table in the way that they're typically presented. I'm not, okay, it's middle of the watch, let's roll some dice. And yep, there's 5 giant tarantulas that are attacking you in the scrub desert. That's not what I do. What I will use random tables for is in the planning. So I will end a session saying, players, you're going to be heading to this other location. Next session, we're going to do the travel between the two. I will then decide environmental role tables, or maybe some ones I made for my campaign world, or maybe some ones that were published for my campaign world. And I will decide what types of encounters I need for this adventure session. 1 social, 1 combat, 1 combat that's campaign centric, and then 1 from one of these random encounter tables. So I will roll, have my resources, have my prep work ready to go. They're going against 5 giant tarantulas. I know their environment. I might even beef one of them up to be a real big tarantula or have extra abilities or powers, so it's a little extra cool. I might think of other ways to make the actual encounter environment more interesting, so the combat encounter itself goes better. So it's more intriguing and there's a lot more movement involved. The idea is I used a random table to generate the idea, but I planned how it's going to be implemented. At the end of the day, the idea is to make every session interesting. So rules be damned. All you really need to do with overland travel is treat it like any other module. Make it interesting. Do things that count. Do things that matter for the characters, do things that are fun for the players, roll dice when you need to, narrate when you need to, let the players have the conversations and group together and bond always. So what do you think about overland travel and some of the ideas I've presented here? Is it something your group does a lot of, something your group does a little of? Is it something your group never does at all? Like everything is one module after the other, basically a series of one-shots strung together. Let me know what you think. And also, let me know what ideas you have that you think I should start implementing or I would have fun implementing. Put those in the comments below. Join our Facebook community on Tabletop Journey so that you can talk with other folks who love gaming and want to find new and interesting ways to make it even more fun than it already is. By all means, make sure you're writing those comments down below. Show a little love to the guys here at Tabletop Journeys. Share with your friends. Don't forget to smash that like button, ring the bell for notifications, and get a hold of some of this great Tabletop Journeys content that we have. Josh is doing a vlog with how to homebrew published adventures from WotC's. Right now, he's in the middle of Keys to the Golden Vault. There will be more that follow with Josh, and I occasionally touch on some of those type of ideas as well. So there's lots of good things that we have here on this vlog is here. And the show, tons of great content, tons of great GM tools, tons of interesting talks, interviews, even some actual plays of brand new games, brand new game systems, even some older game systems that you may not have had the opportunity to test out. Tabletop Journeys is a way to do that. At the end of the day, when you're going from there to here, have a goal in mind, have some great ideas ready to roll. And when you do that, I know deep in my heart, I can feel it in the wind that you and your game tables are on the right path. Be sure you like, subscribe, and smash that button below and ring the bell for notifications.